So I've opened youtube.com over here and let me show you something. So if I click on over here and select appearance and click on dark theme, you see the whole website's theme got converted into the dark mode. And you can see similar patterns in other big tech websites as well, like Twitter, Instagram, etc. And that is the reason why this is such an important interview question as well. So let's see how we can implement it into our own website and how you can answer these types of questions when asked in your front-end interviews. But before we do that, hit that subscribe button right now if you want to see more such videos like this, because you won't find content like this anywhere else on YouTube. So I've opened Code Sandbox over here and I'm gonna initialize a new React.js sandbox. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm going to quickly create a dummy app with a few pages. So if you want to add multiple pages in our app, you already know we are going to need React Router DOM. React Router DOM, yep, this is what we're going to install. If you are using VS Code or something like that, you can use npm install React Router DOM. Instead of this div over here, I'm going to say browser router. And this is going to be coming from React Router DOM. So I'm going to say import from React Router DOM. Inside of this, I'm gonna write browser router. Now this browser router is the one that is going to wrap all of our pages. And inside of this, we are going to create our routes. But above all of these above all of these pages, we are going to share a nav bar as well, right? So I'm gonna have a nav bar component here. Okay, so let's create a route first. For creating our routes, we need to wrap it inside something called routes. And this routes tag also comes from React Router DOM. Import it, and we're gonna need one more tag called route. Inside of this routes, I'm gonna have this route tag for all of our pages. So let's say we have 3 pages like home page, about page, and blog page. So we have to define path as well. So our home page will be /, and we're gonna give element over here, which is going to be our component. And similarly for about page, I'm gonna have about path, and for our blog page, let's have a blog path. Here I'm gonna have a home component and a about component and a blog component. Now let's quickly go on and create these pages first. So I'm gonna create a new folder over here called pages, and inside of this I'm gonna create 3 files. First for home.js. So inside of this home.js, I'm gonna have a component, very simple component, const home equals, and I'm gonna return a div from it. Inside of this div, I'm gonna have a h1 tag, which is going to say home page, and it's gonna have a p tag, which is going to say welcome to home page. That's it. And let's export it as well. Export default home. And similarly, we're gonna have a about page and a blog page as well. Blog.js. Inside of this, I'm gonna create a component about page. Inside of blog page, I'm gonna say blog page. Let's say read our latest blogs here. And actually all of this are going to have a class name of page, which I'm gonna style it later on. Let's just add the class name for now. And inside of our app.js, let's import all of these. So home, about, and blog page. Let's save this. Okay, we can see our home page. If we go to /about, we can see our about. What about the blog page? blog blog. Great. We can see all of our pages over here. But we are also going to need a nav bar as well. So I'm going to create a nav bar component. And obviously this doesn't exist yet. So I'm going to create a new folder for our components. And obviously these are just good way to create components and pages the conventional way, so that your code looks clean and your folder structure looks good. So inside of our components, I'm going to create a navbar.js file. And here I'll create a navbar component. Now inside of this navbar, I'm going to wrap it inside of this nav HTML element, which is good for our semantics. And inside of this, I'm going to have a div. which is going to wrap all of our links. Now we're gonna have 3 links, obviously: home page, about page, and blog page. So first of all, for home page, and when it comes to link with React Router DOM, we use this link tag, as you can see, which comes from React Router DOM. This works similar to the A tag, but when we use these link tag, our app won't refresh. It will just transition us from one page to another in a blink of an eye. So let me show you. So if I say link to, and this will be responsible for going to the home page, and I'll just say home. Below this, I'm gonna have a about page link and a blog. So this will go to about, and this will go to blog. Let's see what do we get. Obviously we need to import it as well, so yeah, import it. Okay, we can't see navbar yet. Okay, we need to return, so return. Now we can see, if we click on about, you can go about, blog, home. Yeah, great, everything is working fine. Let's just add very simple styling to this app first, and then we can continue on implementing our dark and light mode. So first of all, in our styles.css, I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to have a very basic body styles, which is some font family, some margin, and I'm going to have some padding. And if you remember, we gave this a page class name as well. So let's add some styling for the page. And I'm simply going to add display flex and flex direction columns so that everything is aligned from top to bottom in every single page. And height is going to be 92 viewport height. And I'm going to give the remaining 8 viewport height to our navbar. So below this, I'm going to have a navbar class with height 8 viewport height. And obviously we haven't created this class name yet. So inside of our navbar, I'm going to give this class name of navbar. And also I'm going to say display flex and justify content to space between, and align items to center, and I'll give some gap between these links. So I'll just say dot navbar div inside of the navbar is going to have a gap of 20 pixels. Oh, I think I need to make this display flex as well. Yep, much better. And let's get rid of this bluish default color over here. So I'm going to say dot navbar, and I'm going to target the A tag, and I'm going to say text decoration to none and color to inherit. Let's see. Yeah, that looks much better. Cool, then we have completed the basic setup of our app. Now let's go on and implement light and dark mode inside of our app. But before that, if you're preparing for your front-end interview and you would like me to help you in your front-end interview preparation, just click the link in the description down below and book a one-on-one call with me. We're going to discuss tips, tricks. I'm going to give you a lot of resources. I'm going to design a proper roadmap tailored to your situation, which is going to help you out a lot in your front-end interview preparation. So click the link in the description down below and book a one-on-one call with me. So there are multiple ways to implement this light and dark mode, but if you think about it, we are going to have a variable which is going to keep a state if the website is in light mode or it's in dark mode. So let's say if we created that state over here, we're going to have to pass that state into all of these pages, to this navbar as well. And let's say, so this is a very basic app, but if you go inside of these pages, they can have like tens of 20s of component inside of it, nested one inside each other. So this is not the most practical way of doing this, because then we will have to do a lot of prop drilling. So we should use something which lifts our state up so that we can have the access to the state whenever we like. So we can use a library like Redux, but in a scenario like this, I don't think it makes some sense to use Redux over here. So what we're going to use is Context API. Redux can be used in much bigger websites, but in our website, I think Context API makes much more sense. So in this video, I'm going to discuss how you can implement light and dark mode by using Context API. But if you want me to create a separate video where I discuss Redux as well, or Redux toolkit as well to implement light and dark mode, comment down below and let me know. So what I can do over here, I can create a new file called theme context.js. And inside of this, I'm going to initialize our Context API. Let me just, and now I'll say const theme context will be equal to create context. So first of all, we will need to create a context which comes from React. And also we're going to use something like use context to access our state in anywhere inside of our app, right? So below this, I'm going to write export const use theme. And this is basically a custom hook that I'm creating, which is just going to be providing us return use context, and it's going to return this context, which is going to be accessible inside of whole of our app, right? So whatever context that we create, whatever states that we create inside of this theme context, it's going to be accessible inside of whole of our app just by importing this use theme function over here, or use theme custom hook over here, right? So okay, let's build on top of this theme context. So I'm gonna create, so export const theme provider. So this is going to be the function which will contain all of our logic, and we are going to wrap our whole of our app inside of this theme provider. I'll show you in just a second. Let me just write out the logic over here. So first state that we are going to create, and first and the only state for now that we're going to create is for our dark mode, right? So I'm going to create a use state over here, and we are going to import it from React. And use states, and this will have default value of false, and this will give us two things: a variable which I'm going to name is dark mode, and a setter function which I'm going to say set is dark mode, which is going to be used for changing this state over here, right? So below this, I'm going to have a function const toggle theme, and this function's job will be to change our theme. So I'm going to take set is dark mode, and I'll take the previous state. So whatever previous state was, if we are triggering this, just invert it. So not previous state. This will, if the dark mode was false, it will be true. If it was true, then it will become false. Now below this, I'm going to have a variable theme which will check is dark mode true. If dark mode is there, then I'm going to say dark, else I'm going to say light. And now I'm going to return our theme context over here that we have created. So what we need to do, we need to wrap our whole app inside of this theme context. So I can say theme context dot provider. We need to somehow wrap whole of our app inside of this theme provider. So what I will say, I'm gonna take children over here, children, and I'm gonna render it over here. And this theme provider will provide all of the state to our children's. So I'm going to say value. This takes a prop called value, and this inside of this value, I'm going to send two things. First is our state, which is our theme, and our function, which is toggle theme. Now obviously you can use something like is dark mode as well. You can send it directly over here, but I like to use something like this theme variable, which is much more clear on what it's doing. It's changing the theme to either dark or light mode, and also we can use these strings as a class name inside of our app. I'll show you. So okay, let's try to wrap whole of our app, and we can just take this theme provider, and what I can do, I can go to my app.js, and I will wrap whole of our app inside of this theme provider. So let's take this tag and wrap whole of our app over here. Let's import it as well. So from theme context, and now whole of our app will have the access to whatever this theme provider is sending to our app. Okay, let's test this out. If we go inside of our nav bar and we use the same function that we used over there, so it was use theme, right? So I can just say use theme. Let's import it from our theme context, and I'll say const theme. Let's see what we get inside of it. I'm gonna just console log it. So yeah, you see, we get two things. First is the theme variable that we sent, and the other is toggle theme function. Great, that is all we need. So instead of using this theme, I can just take this theme variable by destructuring it and toggle theme. Now you might be thinking, how are we going to change these themes? What I can do, I can go back to our styles.css, And what I can do, I can give this some default CSS variables. Now, if you're enjoying this tutorial up until this point, open your Instagram app right now and search Roadside Coder and hit that follow button as hard as you can, because I'm very active on Instagram, and if you have any doubts, any queries, or just a normal message, you can ping me on Instagram for this. So go on, do it. I'm waiting. What? I'm being serious over here. Open your Instagram app right now and follow me there. Oh, you've already done it? Okay, let's move on with this video. So normally we write our CSS variables inside of something called a root. So like this, and we assign these variables. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to assign a data attribute. So let me show you. So if I, let's say, searched data attribute in HTML, so what is this data attribute? So this data attribute is nothing but a simple tag that we give to our HTML tags, or maybe simple prop that we give to our HTML tags like this. And then we can access it inside of our CSS. So let me show you. Whenever we are changing our theme over here, what I want to do, I'll have a use effect. Let's see, it's imported from React. Okay. It's gonna have an empty dependency, and no, it's not gonna have actually an empty dependency. It's gonna see for is dark mode. If the is dark mode changes, then only this will be fired off. And whenever it will be fired off, what I will simply do, I'll say document dot document element dot set attribute, and I will assign it the attribute of data theme, and this will be whatever our theme is currently. So let me show you where this is located. So if we go to inspect, and actually let me just open this link into a completely separate page over here. If I go to inspect, and yeah, you can see in HTML tag itself, it has this data theme attribute, which is right now light mode. If we change it to dark mode, which okay, let's say it's true by default, and if I refresh our page now, you're gonna see the data theme is now dark. So how are we going to use this? Let's see. Let me just turn it back to false. And inside of our styles.css, instead of this root, what we can say is, I'm gonna use these two square brackets. I'll say data theme equals to light. Whenever the data theme is equals to light, our background color will be this, text color will be this, heading color will be. So obviously you can assign more variables over here, but for this example, I've taken 3 variables. But whenever our data theme is dark, we are going to replace these variables with some dark shades. So I have these other colors over here, which we're going to be using for our dark mode. Simply I can say inside of our body tag, I can say background color, and we're going to use the variable bg color. For our h1 tags, color to be, and we're going to use the variable heading color, and also inside of our body for our normal texts, I'm going to use the color to be text color. And now notice, so by default obviously it's light mode, but if I go on over here and turn this to true, notice our app has been converted into dark mode. Awesome. All right, so obviously we can't just go on and change this use state's initial state over here by setting it to false and true every single time, right? So we have to make use of this toggle theme function somewhere. So let's go on and create the switch for our dark and light mode. So I'm going to go inside of my navbar.js, and let me just shrink it, and over here just below this div, I'm going to create a switch for our light and dark mode. So let's have a div with class name mode switch, and inside this div I'm gonna have a label tag. Inside of this label I'm gonna have a input tag. This input will be of type checkbox. On change, I'm gonna call toggle theme function, this function right here, and I'm gonna give this an attribute of checked. How do we know if it's checked? If the theme is dark. So theme is dark. Let's see if we take it. Awesome, we have successfully implemented our light and dark mode. But this looks a little bit ugly. This checkbox looks a little bit ugly. So let's make this a little good looking switch. Right, so right below this, I'm gonna have a span tag, and this span tag is going to simply have a class name of slider and round. Now let's go to our styles.css and let's just add this. First of all, for our label, I'm gonna give some display inline block and some width and height to contain this switch, and some position relative and margin left of 10 pixels. So I'll tell you why I've given this position relative, because inside this I'm going to create a switch which will need a position absolute. So let me show you. So as you already know, I've created a span with the slider class, right? So here it is. This is going to be having a position absolute, and our cursor is going to be pointer, so that whenever we hover on it, this is pointer. You see? These top left right bottom is for positioning the switch inside of this label. We're going to give this some background color with respect to if it's light or dark mode, and some transition of 0.4 second, and you're going to know why I've given this transition in our next CSS class, which I'm going to go and write, and border radius obviously because we want to give this some rounded corners. Now whenever our app is in dark mode, I want to change this background color. So what I can say, instead of this mode switch input, if it's checked, then I'm gonna change the slider. So I'm gonna change the background color of the slider. So notice, see, and due to transition, it's transitioning slowly to that color. Now we're going to need a knob like structure over here, which is going to be moving from left to right. So what I'll say, I'll have a, inside of this mode switch class, for this slider, I'm gonna give this before pseudo selector. So this will allow us to create an element like knob over here. So that element is going to be having position absolute inside of it, so that we can place it wherever we like. Content is going to be empty because we don't want anything inside of it. We just want it to be a simple graphic like thing, right? Height and width is going to be 16 pixel. Left and bottom is going to be 2 pixels by default. As you can see, we have this gap over here. That's why. Some background color of white and some transition of 0.4 seconds, so that when we click on it, it can transition to the right side, which we haven't given it yet. And obviously some border radius of 50%, so that this is round. Let's give this some transition so that whenever we click on it, it goes to the right side. So I can just simply take this and paste it over here, and we're going to do the same thing. When the input is checked, then we're going to change this. So I'll say whenever the input is checked, then right inside of it, I'll have a transform, translate X actually, and I'm going to give this 20 pixels. So it's going to translate by 20 pixels. So now notice, yep, looks so good. And you can probably add some graphics as well, like people generally add like sun and moon over here to depict light and dark mode, right? So yep, this is how you implement light and dark mode into your website, and this is a very important React.js interview question. And let me know if you want me to make a similar video with Redux toolkit as well. And if you like this video, if you want to see more such videos, click this link above my head to access the complete React.js interview questions playlist.